Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our very first Sage Career Talks. As I told you last week, we're going to be doing this on a regular basis. This is a way for you guys to understand a bit more about the world of work and what you'll be getting into after year 13 and after university. So this is really for you guys to be able to understand what the future holds or potentially holds, and use this opportunity to ask any questions that you have with any concerns or doubts or queries from some experts in their field. And we're lucky enough to have, first of all, Mr. Richard Carter, who's coming to talk to us today about his experience in the world of work. So I'd like you to welcome Richard Carter to the stage with a big stage round of applause.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Ms. Westwood. Great to be here and really privileged to be here doing a careers talk with you all. The first one, hopefully one of many. So, I'm Richard Carter, as Emily said. I'm going to talk to you about my background, my school, my education, and then a little bit about my career path. It was quite windy, it wasn't very linear, but I'm not going to cover all of the moments of my career, just the key highlights, all right? And I'll finish with what I do today, which is a little bit about the world of employee experience. So, a bit about my background. Get this to move. So, I'm from the UK. A little tiny town where the end of the arrow is called Kings Lynn. Quite boring, but very pretty, with some great beaches. And I grew up there, and I lived there until I was roughly 22 years old. So that's me, my hometown. Education, I went to a school called King Edward VII High School, a really old school. You can see the picture there on the left. It opened in 1902, and it was opened by the then King of the UK, King Edward VII, and that's why the school was named after him. And he actually came to open the school and did a speech in the main hall of the school on the opening day. I wasn't there, by the way, in 1902. This is how it looks today. It looks the same. And I actually went back to that school about 5 years ago and did a very similar careers talk back in the school where I was taught, which was quite cool. But yeah, really good school, really cool, a bit like Sage, quite relaxed. Didn't have the patio, didn't have anywhere near such good sporting facilities, but it was a really good school and I enjoyed it a lot. Academically, how did I do? Well, I did my GCSEs and I did A-levels, so you can see the GCSEs I did up there, and then I chose my A-levels. I did French literature, business studies, economics and maths, all right? Did all right, wasn't brilliant, but I did all right. And then I kind of quit my education and I decided to enter into the world of work. So, the early years of my work started when I was 13. My family had a very small shop. It was a butcher's shop selling meat, ham, sausages, and it had been in my family for 60 years. And at the age of 13, I started working in that shop, delivering on a bike similar to that one, food to people that lived in the local area. I was kind of like the very early Uber Eats or Deliveroo guy back in the 1980s. And I worked in the shop, cleaning, serving customers, delivering things to people in the area. At the age of 17, I started working while I was studying, so in the evenings and at weekends as well. And this shop, for anyone who's familiar with the UK years ago, is an electrical retailer, a bit like MediaMarkt that we've got here, selling computers, vacuum cleaners, washing machines, you name it. And I was selling product in there to customers, so talking to people, explaining what the products did, selling it to them, making sure that they had a good time. So what did I learn in my early years of career? Well, I learned about communication and the importance of being able to communicate, whether that be the little old lady who I was delivering her sausages to, or whether it be somebody buying a washing machine. I learned a lot about customer service and the importance of giving great service to people. whether they were in a local community or in a big retail store buying products. I learned a lot about teamwork and how important that is when you get into the world of work and working with people that are perhaps not like yourselves. I learned a lot about my confidence. I wasn't the most confident kid at school, and working in those kind of retail environments was a real stepping stone for me in terms of improving how confident I am when it comes to my own personal life. And finally, I learned a lot about the experience of the customer, all right? How many of you have bad experiences already, whether that be going into McDonald's and it's full and there's a queue, you order your food and the burger looks nothing like the picture that you see on the wall. It's cold, you know, the toilets are dirty. All of that stuff is about the experience that you have as a consumer or a customer. And I learned a lot about that in my early years. But the one thing that I take from my early years career was that I actually realised I liked working with people, and I liked people, all right? So bear that in mind, because that kind of leads through my career journey into what I'm doing today. So let's fast forward a couple of years. At the age of 21, I became a sales rep, all right? In the UK, that's my first car. It was a Toyota Carina. I had a car at the age of 21, a company car. I was a cool kid, right? I was really pleased with that. I had a mobile phone, which was about this big, attached to the car with a curly cable. I couldn't actually take it out of the car. And I spent my days travelling around the UK selling products to shops. And those products were albums, CDs, you know what they were, videos, DVDs, and computer games. And that's what I did for a long time. And I managed to spend about 15 years with that company, getting promoted. But it was all about sales, and it was all about selling product to people. And then I spent some time at a company called Asda in the UK, which is a very large supermarket, a bit like Carrefour here in Spain. And I was based in their head office. That's the head office. It's in Leeds. I moved to the north of the country, in Yorkshire. It's a big office, 2,500 people worked in the office. The company had, or has now, still got about 250,000 employees around the UK. And I spent my time at Asda in their head office doing lots of different jobs. But the main job that I had while I was there was I was a supply chain manager, and I worked in logistics. So what does that mean? Effectively, it's getting product from the manufacturer through the supply chain to the consumer, in this case on the shelves in the supermarket. And my responsibility was to get the products that you buy that's not food, so toys, Christmas decorations, TVs, microwaves, vacuum cleaners, pens, paper, anything that's not food. It was my responsibility and my team's responsibility to order the right quantities from the factories where they were being made and make sure that that product arrived into the UK and getting it onto the shelves so that people could buy it. Now, most of the products that I was responsible for were sourced from China or Sri Lanka. So in that job, I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time in China, visiting all of the factories. And here you can see one of the factories where they actually make microwaves. It was incredible to see the scale of manufacturing that was going on in China. And in Sri Lanka was a lot of our clothing and bedding, duvets were all made in Sri Lanka. So again, I spent a lot of time in Sri Lanka, very fortunate. The product would make its way to the UK in a container on a vast ship like this. My team would then coordinate the logistics of getting that product from our warehouses into lorries on the roads of the UK and eventually onto the shelf so that the customer could buy it. All right? So very different from delivering ham, sausages to the little old lady around the corner from my dad's shop. What did I learn through those discovery years, as I called them? So I learned a lot more about commercialism, P&L, costs, finances. All of that was critical in both of those roles. I got my first experience of leadership, leading people, and becoming a people manager. That's a hard job and a separate session on people management and leadership. But while I was working here in Asda, I had 65 people in my team, and I had no choice but to learn the ropes around leading people. I learned a lot about resilience because it's a a high pressure job here, getting product into the shops. If it's not there, the people can't buy it. If they can't buy it, the company doesn't make money. And that sits on my shoulders. So you have a lot of pressures and things happen. Bad weather stops the boats coming. You have traffic jams for ships, believe it or not, and products can't get to the shops. And all that pressure was on my shoulders. So I learned a lot about being resilient. Again, similar to working with people, collaborating and the importance of working with people around you to get the job done. You can't do it by yourself. So the importance of collaborating with those around you is critical. And coaching, so being a mentor for people that you work with and around. But still, I realised that I still liked working with people. So that theme was running all the way through the types of jobs that I did in my early years and my discovery years. So then let's fast forward to 2018. From the supply chain world of visiting China and getting things onto ships, I found myself working in human resources. And I finally found my passion. All right? So all of those jobs that I'd had before, I enjoyed, I loved, I learned a lot from them, but I wasn't really connected with them. I didn't really feel there was a passion. I found myself in human resources, and immediately I felt I'd kind of come home, and this was what I was here to do. So I've got a question for you, just to check you're all awake. What is human resources? Yeah?
Managing the workers and people.
Managing the workers and people. Pretty good summary, yeah? Anyone else got anything else to add? Yeah, it's a difficult one, right? If you say I'm a doctor, you'll go, oh, yeah, I know what a doctor is, or I'm a policeman, yeah, I know what that is, or I'm a scientist. Human resources is a difficult one, and it's something that doesn't really get talked a lot about, and it's often behind the scenes. But human resources, or sometimes it's called HR, or sometimes now the people team, is the department in a company or an organisation, just like Sage College has teachers and staff. HR's main job is to find the best people, take care of them while they're in the workplace, retain them and keep them, and make sure they're motivated so that the organisation can meet its goals. All right? Big sentence, but that's effectively what human resources is all about. And adding a little bit of colour onto that, it's not about writing a job contract, it's not about paying people, well it is, but not just that. It's not about discipline or disciplinaries. It's all of these things on here. So we have to write policies, it's about pay, it's about organising benefits like healthcare, pensions, it's about structural changes of teams within organisations, it's about managing budgets. People cost a lot of money, and actually making sure that we maintain the budget. It's about performance managing, making sure people are performing well, recruiting, engaging people, onboarding new people into the business, training people, all of that up there. All of those things are parts of human resources, all right? So where am I today? Well, today I'm here with you guys. I'm very privileged, but today I'm head of employee experience. I work in Gibraltar, so I've left the UK, clearly. My little boy's here at Sage, down in early years. I live in Jerez, but I work in Gibraltar, hour and 20 minutes away from here. I'm not there every day, I'm there 2 or 3 days per week. And this is my office. Not my office, but the office where I work. It's in Ocean Village. If any of you know Gibraltar, it's a pretty cool place. Lots of yachts, bars, restaurants, and we have a pretty cool site there. And I am head of employee experience. So I've been there now 2 years. When I left the UK, I was fortunate enough to get the job in Gibraltar. And yeah, so my journey has woven its way all the way from those early days of working in my granddad's very small shop to being here in Ocean Village in Gibraltar as head of employee experience for my current company. So that is what my journey looks like. All right. Emily, I'm going to hand over to you because I know you've got some questions for me.
Yeah. In fact, actually, thank you so much, Richard. So that was a really great insight snapshot into what you do, Richard. And I know that our students have actually got some questions for you. Can you come up if you think you might have a question?
I think you might have a question. Who's got a question?
Or put your hand up. Come on, Reza, can you come up for me? So we need to hear you into the microphone. Let's have Ignatius first.
So, what do you actually do when you work?
What do I actually do when I work? It's a really good question. So my day, my week is very varied. So I could be onboarding new people into the organisation. I could be coaching some of our senior leaders if they're struggling with difficult situations. I could be training. Yesterday I was training a group of 8 people who are new to being management, and I was running some leadership training for them yesterday for 4 or 5 hours. I could be the ugly side of my role. I could be having difficult conversations with people that are not performing and talking to them about the consequences or potential consequences of them not performing. I could be meeting with the chief exec talking about the costs and how much we're spending on people, and very often how much we need to save, which ultimately does lead to restructuring teams and how many people we have in the organisation, and unfortunately that might lead to some people going. I could be sorting out somebody's mental health for them. We have a lot of people that struggle at the moment with mental ill health, and I'm often in the thick of that, coaching them, working with them, trying to find them the right solution, whether that be through healthcare or through a counsellor, all sorts. So it can be anything along those lines. In fact, I've got a brief summary here of the 8 stages of employee experience. If you think about what I said earlier about your experience as a customer, if you go into a shop or into a restaurant and it's not great, then you're probably not going to go back into that shop. You'll find an alternative shop that sells trainers, or an alternative to McDonald's. You might go to Burger King next time if you had a bad experience. Think of that as an employee. If you come to work and there's no desks, the toilets are dirty, the management are rude to you, you don't get paid very well, there's no flexibility about when you work, the air conditioning is never on, there's no coffee, tea in the kitchen. All of that stuff is about the experience an employee has when they come to work. And a bit like you with your consumer experience, if you don't like it, you're going to go somewhere else. And that's the challenge I have. With employees now, it's so difficult to recruit, believe it or not, because there's so much choice for people going into the world of work. Particularly post-pandemic, it's opened up the world of work globally. So many people can now work remote in other countries without necessarily being tied down to one particular place. So part of my job as employee experience is making sure that the employees have the best experience possible when they come to work. And even before, so when we talk about recruitment, coming in for an interview, you know, what does that feel like? Did it feel like it was a good culture? Was there a good vibe? So my job is essentially throughout the whole time an employee is with us, right until they leave us, making sure that that experience is the best it can be. Because if not, just like you as a consumer, they're going to go off and find somewhere else to work. And that's really expensive for any business if people leave. So you can see here the 8 stages of employee experience. It starts when we attract people to the company, it goes through recruitment, it's when we onboard them, making sure that experience is great, how we engage them with parties or events or social gatherings, all of that stuff sits with me. How we develop people, so what does career development look like, training, whether that be management training, like I was doing yesterday, or mental health first aid training, which we run, all of that stuff about development is part of the experience. Performance of people, so are they performing, and if not, why not? That sits with me. How do we reward people? That's not just pay, that is the benefits that people get, the perks that people get, healthcare, insurance, all of that stuff. And then eventually, even the exit of people, somebody leaves us or decides that they want to go somewhere else, what does that experience feel like? That also sits with me. So all the way through an employee's time with us, that's all about the experience, and I'm responsible for making sure it's a good one. Okay?
Hi. Can you grow your career in the job you're doing?
For sure, yeah. It's a good question. So, most companies now, they've got people working for them, a significant number of people, and it's 550 people in my company. But most companies with a sizable headcount will have an HR department. But if you think globally, some of the biggest organizations in the world, think about Walmart in the US, they're global. Think about Amazon, think about Apple, Google. They are huge companies with thousands and thousands and thousands of people working for them. So the career path for people that work in human resources is vast. You don't have to be doing engagement. There are other teams that are in human resources. I'll flick onto this. You've got people that take care of payroll. So if people don't get paid, they're off. All right? So making sure pay is right and is sorted is really important. So that's finance. That's a finance aspect of the people team. We have admin, so business admin and accounting. It's really important. We have people out there looking for talent. All right? If we need a new HR director, or if we need a new technology controller, or if we need a new finance head, we have a team of people that just focuses on recruitment, going out into the marketplace and finding great talent that we can bring in. We have people that do training, so I have some trainers that work for me. We have people that look after employee well-being, and we have coaches and mentors as well. So there's lots of different roles in HR, but if you get into bigger companies, you can definitely progress your career. You can experience all of these different subtopics, but you can become head of, like me. You've got vice president roles. You've got chief people officers, global chief people officers, global talent. You know, so the world is your oyster. If you want to get into HR and progress your career, it's not just about sat at the desk tapping out contracts and paying people. There is so much more that you can do.
I think we've got another question from Carmen. Do you want to
Carmen?
come and say in there, Michael? We've got the video on. Come through this way.
Closer to the
Now
mic.
closer, right?
What does a typical day
Oh,
involve?
we've had that.
Yeah, we have more or less.
Oh.
It can be very varied. You got one, Emily?
Yeah, have one.
So you talked a bit earlier on about your qualifications
Yeah.
that you left school with GCSEs and A-levels. Is there a sort of set requirement in terms of qualifications needed for the role, or
Yeah.
what's the typical kind of path that people take
Brilliant.
educationally?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. So when I set off leaving school, getting my phone, I had absolutely zero clue what I wanted to do. And I found myself doing this job that I now love. And I didn't study any particular qualifications that's got me to where I am today. However, there are a number of qualifications that are really important in the world of HR now. So you might be sitting there thinking, the most important skill, I would say the most important skill is your ability to connect with people. All right? It's really difficult to work in human resources if you don't really think about people, or you connect with people, or you can communicate with people. Being able to get under the skin of people, letting them trust you, build a knowledge about them, and being able to collaborate and communicate with people is really important. That's what I found. All right?
That's really interesting. Thanks, Richard. Particularly as you hear a lot as students, and which is true and right, that exams and qualifications and results and grades are really important, which they are. There's no doubt about that. But this key thing that Richard's come back to and again is about people, and about how you can connect with people, how you can interact with them, and really it boils down to empathy and being able to understand at the core what people are about. So that's something that is really important, and which is why things like PSAT and those kind of skills at school, we try and make you into good little human beings, or big human beings as it goes maybe. Okay, Richard's actually offered a bit further down the line to do some mock interviews with you, particularly the year 12s and 13s, to help out a bit
Yeah,
with your
sure. If
interview
anybody is
skills.
up for having a dummy run, an interview, a real life interview, I'm happy to come in and do that with you. And feedback on CVs and things as well.
Yeah, that would be really great. One last question from me before we go. What is the best thing about your job? And you're not allowed to say Friday at 4 o'clock.
Right, so the best thing for me is I get bored quite quickly. So for me, it's not knowing what I'm going to be going into each week. So I can have a plan, think I know what I'm going to be doing, somebody has a crisis, and then suddenly my complete diary's changed. Or pandemic happens. Crikey, how do we get people to work through a pandemic? That was an exciting period. So it's never boring working in HR, and there's always something new and challenging. You don't quite know what you're going to get, and for me, that is the most exciting and best part of working in what I do. It's never consistent. All right, and I've got one last slide. So for me, HR is the unofficial lawyer, psychologist, event planner, teacher, peacemaker and miracle worker. That sums up my life, right? Okay? So I'm leaving that with you. That's what it's all about, working in human resources.
Sounds great. Right, thank you very much, Richard. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Thank you for starting our stage